If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging out with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Sharief, Ishaq in 15 minutes talking Saints. Curt, Schilling, MLB legend, will be with us at the bottom of the hour. LSU and Southern about to get underway out at Alec Box Stadium. We'll keep you updated as we move forward. If you'd like to listen to that, you can on our sister station, Eagle 98.1. If you want to hang out here, we appreciate that very much as well. LSU and South Carolina tonight from the PMAC, 8 o'clock tip-off. These two teams had a rough go. LSU's 2-10 in the league. South Carolina is 0-12. You put those together, my math's not great, but that's 2-22 in 24 conference games. You know what's interesting, though? We know what LSU did in the pre-conference. We know that they beat Florida State. We know that they beat Kansas State on the road. We know that they beat Central Florida. We know that they didn't stub their toe against some bad teams. Yeah, I mean, Pitt's not great, and you got beat, and yeah, it was disappointing not to win at SMU, but they've had a pretty good go in ACC play. But LSU was pretty decent in the non-conference. Another 2-10. South Carolina was pretty decent in the non-conference. I promise. South Carolina beat Virginia Tech away from Columbia. It was a neutral site game. They won that game. Virginia Tech's 6-8 in ACC play, like middle of the pack. They beat Boston College. Now, Boston College is not good. They're 2-12 in the ACC. But they didn't win that game. And South Carolina beat Clemson in the non-conference. If you're not familiar, and I'm sure a lot of you probably aren't because I don't think a lot of you are locked in on national college basketball these days, Clemson's 13-2 in the ACC, and South Carolina beat them. And South Carolina can't win an SEC game. I know it doesn't make anyone in Columbia and certainly in Baton Rouge feel any better about their teams that are a combined 2-22 in league play, but like the fact remains that this league's just a monster. And if you're not really good, you lose. It's just what it is. And these two teams have lost a ton. Now, LSU got off the old schneid on Saturday by stealing one from Oklahoma. South Carolina hasn't found that yet. And trust me, South Carolina's gotten throttled a few times. Like, Mississippi State beat them by 25 points. Kentucky I think they beat them by 35, actually. Kentucky beat them by like 22. Florida beat them by 20. They've had some that got away. They've also had some heartbreakers. 7 of their 12 SEC losses, 7 of them have been by 5 or less points. That's a lot of times to be in a game and never come up on the right side. I'm not trying to make South Carolina sound like a great basketball team. I'm just laying out the actual statistics here. Now, when you look at them on paper, how they play versus what the scoreboards have read, it starts to make a little bit more sense. There are some statistics here for South Carolina that are very poor, and I really think there are some statistics here that favor LSU significantly. The only hesitation I have with LSU in this game is the health of Corey Chess and the health of Damian Collins. Because if those two guys are really compromised, you don't really have a front court. So I can't sit here and tell you I think LSU is going to run away with the game. I don't think that. But South Carolina is a good matchup for LSU. I'll tell you why. South Carolina's offensive efficiency rank is 250th in the country. They are not good on the offensive end. And while they're not good, they're also really slow. They're 242nd in the country in pace. They want to play things very monotonously. And I think LSU might be okay with that, quite frankly. We thought LSU wanted to get up and down the floor a lot early on, and they did. And then you kind of look at it now and go, that's probably not the best idea because you turn it over a ton when you do that. So part of South Carolina playing very slow, they don't take a lot of shots. They're 331st in the nation in field goal attempts per game. There are only 33 teams in the country that shoot less often than South Carolina at a 364. But here's one thing that they will do, and this is really has been their only proven way of scoring points, is getting to the free throw line. Like, that's really all they got. They've got 3 players on their roster that start that have shot 115 or more free throws on the season. For context there, Cam Carter leads LSU with 100. We feel like Cam Carter's got the ball a lot. They've got 3 guys that shoot more foul shots than Cam Carter does. They are 19th in the country in free throw attempts per game. Now, this is another one of those bad stats for South Carolina. I tell you in one breath that South Carolina is 19th in the country in free throw attempts per game, and they are. They're 260th in free throw percentage. So they get there a lot. They don't shoot it great from there. And that's a big problem. Now, we know what LSU's bugaboos have been, and certainly the defensive glass over the course of the entire season has been an issue. South Carolina doesn't hurt you there all that bad. They're 168th in the country in offensive rebounding percentage, so not very good. So their offense is slow. They don't shoot it very well. They shoot a lot of free throws. They don't shoot them that great. That's kind of the South Carolina offense. Defensively, they're 144th in the country in defensive efficiency. They're 207th in opposing shooting percentage, so teams have shot it pretty well. They're a good defensive rebounding team, but here's the number. Here's the metric. This is the one. Opponent turnover percentage. 282nd in the country, meaning they don't force a lot. If you're LSU, there's no reason to turn the ball over a lot against South Carolina. No team in the SEC turns teams over less frequently than South Carolina. And LSU has done a much better job of taking care of the ball the last 3 games. 9 turnovers against Oklahoma, 9 turnovers against Ole Miss, 9 turnovers in each of their last 3 games. So that's an improvement. They're getting better at it. They've got to do it again in this game. I would say this. If LSU can hold itself to 10 or fewer turnovers in this game, which they've done 3 games in a row, one's a win over Oklahoma, one's a close loss to Ole Miss. If they can keep it at 10, they'll win the game. The way LSU will lose this game is if they turn it over 17 or 18 times, which is not in South Carolina's playbook. Now, you look at this team from a personnel perspective, South Carolina, they've got Jamari Thomas as a point guard who averaged 13 a game. He's smaller, like Sears. He's 5'11". We'll see if Sears plays more or Givens plays more. You saw more of Givens in the game on Saturday. You've seen some Mike Williams play a little bit more. Jordan Sears played 10 minutes on Saturday and didn't score. So we'll see. But then they've got Colin Murray Boyles, who is their best player. He's a wing. He's 6'7", 245 pounds. He leads the team in scoring at 15.5 a game. He leads the team in rebounds at 8.4. He's scored 20 or more points 7 times. He's a good player. Now, LSU's going to have to guard him and keep him off the free throw line. But this is the last time you'll have me sit here and say that I think LSU is going to win a basketball game this year. Because you look at the schedule and what's coming, and we all know that your odds of getting a win over the last 5 games, not real great. You're talking about playing 3 top 10 teams. You're talking about some road games. I don't feel good about you playing number 2 Florida, even in the Maravich Center. I don't feel great about you playing a Tennessee team that's in the top 15, even though that's in the Maravich Center. And then you got to go on the road to Mississippi State, who's played much better over the last game against Ole Miss. Then you're at Kentucky. Sorry, that's not going to go great. And then Texas A&M comes to the Maravich Center. A&M's good. They're just so unflashy that I sometimes sell them a little bit short, but they're good. So you're in the front end of the front end of a 3-game homestand here with South Carolina, but Florida and Tennessee are the other 2. That's going to be a little hairy. So you need to go ahead and take care of your business here. Now you realize that South Carolina is going to come into this game thinking, Well, this is a good shot for us to get a win here. If you're South Carolina, you're not stupid. You realize that on some nights you're playing Auburn, who's undefeated, and on some nights you're playing LSU, who's 2-10. Which night do you realize you've got a better chance to win a game? So you're going to get their best shot, I think. I expect this to be a pretty competitive game. I expect LSU to win the game because I think this is a great matchup. I don't think South Carolina is going to speed LSU up. I don't think South Carolina is going to turn LSU over a lot. I do think that LSU's defense, which has been pretty good in the half court, was great against Ole Miss for that whole game, was great against Oklahoma late in that game. I think that defense is going to hold a number 250 offensive efficiency team in South Carolina to a relatively low number of points. This game may be played in the 60s, but I think LSU is going to win it. And I think that that'll be a two-game winning streak for the Tigers before things get real tough with some of the best teams in college basketball over the last 3 weeks of the season. So that's your look at LSU and South Carolina tonight. It is at 8 o'clock in the Maravich Center. Connor Ware with a 1-2-3 inning for the Fighting Tiger baseball squad over there at the box. Tigers coming to bat up. It'll be 0-0. Southern and LSU over on Eagle 98.1 right now. Curt Schilling will join us in 15 minutes. Sharief Ishaq talking Saints. That is next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. That's a pretty good gig. 3 years of complimentary maintenance. Pretty good gig. 3 years of complimentary valet maintenance. You can't beat that. It's just incredible. It's just part of being a Genesis driver. Just give them a chance. That's all I asked. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, you're probably going to be on Airline Highway anyway. Might as well stop in right there across from Women's Hospital on Piku and just say, hey, heard about y'all on Hunt's show. What you got? And their brand ambassadors will help you from there. If you want to start your process a little more specifically than that, you can at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Their entire line is on the website. Look at the pictures, see all the bells and whistles, but you really need to get behind the wheel of a Genesis to understand the difference. Sleek, stylish, comfortable, and it's very safe. So luxury brand of vehicles at a reasonable price. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. Get on by and see them Airline Highway at Piku or online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
It's a hit parade over there at the box. Started with Chris Stanfield, who reached. I'm not exactly sure how because I was still talking in the last segment, but Derek Curiel drove him in from second base. Bear Jones has ripped a laser through the left side. LSU's up 1-0 on Southern. In the bottom of the first inning, nobody out. Daniel Dickinson up with runners on first and third, so we'll keep you posted on scoring from that one between these two capital city universities, LSU and Southern, as we move forward in this hour. Sharief Ishaq down in New Orleans covers the Hoodats for WDSU. Joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Sharief, how are we doing?
Good, man. Hopefully we go to the College World Series 56-0.
I kind of doubt
or
it.
Whatever.
I'm not an expert in these types of things, but I'm kind of thinking that's unlikely. But I hope they get as close as possible because that's a good thing. Let's talk Saints. Kellen Moore's had the job for a week now. Starting to see a lot of names on the offensive side surface as staff members, not so much on the defense. I talked about that in the first hour of the show here, saying, look, I think Kellen Moore took this job going, I'm going to get my house in order on this side of the ball, and then we'll figure out that side of the ball with whoever's going to run it for me when that time comes. Is that kind of how you see this working out?
Yeah, I think we're into the next piece we'll see, into that puzzle will be Doug Nussmeier, and he'll be the offensive coordinator. He's been alongside of Kellen Moore pretty much his entire career. So I'd say he'd be the offensive coordinator, then they shift things over to the defense. So I think Brandon Staley is probably the front runner to be the defensive coordinator. He'll let Staley build that entire staff. But that's the direction they're heading in. They're going to finish this offensive staff with Nussmeier and then go to defense, and I think it's going to be Staley.
Do you have another name for defense, or are all eyes kind of fixed on Staley?
It really does look like it's all on Staley. I understand that Durante Jones, I saw his name, a strong candidate, but I think it's Staley to me the whole way. It feels like just like Kellen Moore for 2 weeks we talked about him. It feels like for a week we've been talking about Nussmeier and Staley as the strong front runners for the OC and DC. So that's the direction it's trending in right now.
Let's get hyper-focused here as opposed to the entirety of the organization. Let's just talk about the offense. What's your confidence level in Kellen Moore and his ability to run the Saints offense during his time in New Orleans?
Well, it depends on how, what year you're asking me. This year, I think, it all depends on the quarterback. I mean, I truly, genuinely think he needs to find a dual-threat quarterback to run his offense. Got to have a guy who can move the pocket, who can at least be a little elusive and throw the ball. So if you're asking me, that's 100% not Derek Carr. Now, will they keep him for one more year? Feels like if they do, they're going to have to keep him for 2 years. That's something you don't really want to do. So I'd say by year 2, year 3, I think the confidence level continues to grow with Kellen Moore, because that means more cap room, more draft picks, more of his players in that offense. And I think it's just going to take a couple years. That's just my opinion. It's not going to be overnight.
So you think there's a chance that Derek Carr is the quarterback in 2026?
If they restructure it in a funny way, look, it's a $51 million cap hit. They restructure it, and there's a way to restructure it down without doing too much. But then, you got to find a way to get under the cap. If they restructure it, you have to be careful how you restructure him, because if you restructure him too much, you're stuck with him for 2 years. So
I just can't imagine that would happen. That seems. I understand what you're saying. It's possible, but I think that's the least likely scenario.
It is the least likely scenario. I think it's either yes or no for 1 year. I'm leaning towards the no, that he won't be back. That's just my gut, not in the inside information. My gut tells me it's a no. He wasn't around for Super Bowl week. Wasn't around for anything for the last 10 days. So it could be something personal, but I just think that, if you're asking me, Kellen, it's not his quarterback. It's Dennis Allen's quarterback. Kellen probably wants his own guy. Maybe they draft someone. Maybe they go find a Justin Fields or someone that can run the offense that he wants. So I just think that that's not his quarterback. He's not tied to having Derek Carr as quarterback.
Yeah, you took the name that was right on the tip of my tongue there. Do you think the Saints go find a quote-unquote veteran, if you want to call Justin Fields a veteran at this point? You think they go find one of those to plug a gap? Do you think they try to find one as the future, and you hope you kind of lucked into something like Darnold last year? Where do you sense that they may go?
I think it's you have to probably, in my opinion, you avoid the draft. Avoid the draft as a whole. I just don't like any of the quarterbacks in this draft. I would search for a young veteran, like Justin Fields would be like somebody that you would chase down. Do you take a chance on a Joe Milton with the Patriots? You try to trade for him. Is he going to want to bring in Kenny Pickett, as a gap quarterback for like a year while they try to figure it out? Somebody. They're going to have to try to make a move at some point in time, whether it's signing someone or trading for someone that works in his offense. I think they're probably better off doing it in that fashion than trying to draft somebody, because I don't know if I want to pick Jackson Dart at number 9. And maybe I'm wrong about Jackson Dart. He turns into a good pro, but I'm not sure if I want to take that shot at number 9.
Is there any smoke around that possibility?
Yeah, I would think so. Look, Joel Thomas might have some influence on it. He coached him in the Senior Bowl. You never know. Never know, they can change their mind. But at number 9, it just seems too rich, hon. You have a lot of needs on this team, and if you go Jackson Dart at number 9, you better be sure he's your quarterback of the future. And maybe they like him that much. But for me, I would be trading back. I would be trading back 5 or 6 slots, picking up picks, and if you do Dart at 15 or 18, maybe I can understand them a little bit more.
You mentioned Joel Thomas. That's a guy who spent a lot of time in the Saints organization, moved out for a year, and then appears to be on the way back. What does that mean for the Saints?
Alvin Kamara loves him. He was beloved here. Clint Kubiak, it didn't work, and he just didn't want him on his offensive staff. So to have him back, he was here from 15 to 23, and I think he did well with the running backs. And just to have him back, I think it's good. It's continuity in terms of your running back room. So I think it's a plus. I know some people are going to be like, now they're just letting Mickey Loomis dictate who Kellen Moore wants. I think Kellen Moore probably asked for a little help, but he probably signed off on some of the guys that like Nugent and, Hazlitt's son. I signed off on it. I said, yeah, I know these guys. I've worked with these guys before, and I know them. So let's bring them in. I mean, Nugent was with the Chargers, Hazlitt, Cowboys. The only tie with Joel Thomas is Indian with the Saints, so he probably said, hey, Joel's a good running backs coach. And he probably knows Joel, too. So I think that's the moves he decides to make.
Do you think they want to have the entire staff set up by the time they go to the Combine?
Yeah. You'd have to have the staff set up. I mean, it feels like by the end of this week, the whole staff is set up. If it's not done by, Thursday, tomorrow, between now and Thursday, I feel like you're going to get pretty much the entire staff before Combine next week.
Do you feel like the Saints, in having to wait as long as they did to hire Kellen Moore, who made it all the way to the Super Bowl, missed out on some potential coordinators or position coaches that were gobbled up because they were last in the cycle?
Sure, yeah, but that's just the price to pay. Your price you pay. You get a good head coach, who won a Super Bowl title, and that's just the price you pay. But it doesn't mean you can't still snag people off of other coaching staffs. I mean, that's still a possibility. I mean, that's just what you have to work with. And I think that when you're looking at some of the guys he's bringing in, some of the guys have ties to the Eagles that he's bringing in. So that's not a bad thing. Now let's see if he has any more guys that maybe he steals some defensive guys and brings them along. Maybe Staley, if it is, who I think should be, might bring some guys from Philly. It might bring some guys that were in LA with the Chargers. So, I mean, it's not always the worst case scenario, but I understand that waiting to the very end to name a coach can kind of hinder you a bit in the search of other coaches.
I'd like to ask you this question just because we're not quite there, but what's the reception in the city been like for Kellen Moore now that he's been there for a week?
I truly think they like it. It's outside the box. It's an offensive-minded coach. After being, having a defensive coach shoved down their throats for almost, 3 years, I think they, from the sense of things, they like it. I mean, they see somebody who's young, creative, innovative, open mind, have an open, mind when it comes to an offense. So, for the most part, from talking to fans, they love it. They love the hire. It's just something different. They wanted something different. They got something different. They got someone, who's coming from a winning franchise.
Sharief, we appreciate some time. We'll talk next week.
All right, Hunt. On to Omaha.
On to Omaha is right. Sharief Ishaq, WDSU, down there in New Orleans, covering all things Saints. Pell's always with us each and every Tuesday here on the Hunt Palmer Show. Appreciate his insight on the black and gold. LSU pushed across 2 in the bottom of the first inning, so Tigers lead 2-0. Could have been worse, but a couple strikeouts and LSU not able to further their rally with 2 runners on base. Connor Ware back out for his second inning of work, and he's quickly got a couple of outs in the second. Chris Stanfield made a really nice diving catch moving in towards second base. So Connor Ware kind of dealing there. He's only thrown 14 pitches. I mentioned at the top of the show I thought that they'd probably like to get him to go 3 innings or so because he's been stretched out. You've got to play 18 innings over the next 2 days. You'd really like to have a couple of guys stretch out a little bit so you don't have to use 15 pitchers to go through 18 innings. And Connor Ware well on his way to doing that right now against the Southern Jaguars as he's gotten 5 outs in 14 pitches thus far. All right, we'll step aside when we come back. Very, very excited to chat with MLB legend Curt Schilling. We'll do that when we come back on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is the website. They're at the Highland Insurance Group. They're all about alternative solutions as far as your insurance programs go. And one of those is a captive program. If you are a business owner and you've got a large business and you spend a significant amount of money on your insurance annually and you've never explored a captive or had a captive brought to you by your agent, you're maybe missing an opportunity. It's a different approach to the insurance game. It's designed for those who do a great job in managing their risk to be able to pool money and ultimately save money on insurance. But it's got to be administered the right way, and you've got to be a right fit for that captive. If you've never been introduced to this type of insurance method, maybe the Highland Insurance Group is worth a phone call. Maybe you need to go to the website HighlandIG.com and reach out and say, hey, I'm spending a lot here. I think this may be something I want to look into. Jonathan Carbo and his team do this kind of stuff all the time, and they are happy to help you with all of it. So business owners, if you haven't seen a captive, check out the Highland Insurance Group. They're online at HighlandIG.com. Right here in Baton Rouge, it's the Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Back here on a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, chugging right along. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Of course, we were back in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago on Media Row for Super Bowl 59, and thought we were going to have an opportunity there to talk with Curt Schilling, who was there on behalf of the World War II Museum. Didn't quite work out because it was a madhouse on that row for the entire week, but we're really appreciative that Curt and his team reached out to us and made it happen a couple of weeks later. So it's our pleasure to welcome to the show man who recorded more than 3,000 strikeouts, won more than 200 games, a six-time All-Star, three-time World Series champ, and a World Series MVP, Major League Baseball legend Curt Schilling joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Curt, thanks for the time. How are you?
Hey, Hunt, what's going on, man?
Not a lot. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I'm curious. Yeah. We were on Media Row, and I talked to a lot of people that did talk to you that week. I know you did a ton of interviews.
Right.
And I had no idea your affinity for and relationship with the World War II Museum.
Yes.
Can you kind of catch us up on that and where that started?
Yep. So 25 years ago this year, June 6th, it opened. I was one of the original members of the board of directors there. A significant portion of my World War II collection resides in the museum as well. And it's been a passion of mine my entire life. I grew up a military brat. My dad was 101st Airborne during Korea. My whole family served. My youngest son is a United States Marine. So I always thought, and I think now, had I not been gifted with the right arm and the ability to precisely throw a baseball very hard, I think that would have been my chosen profession. So, and the museum, I don't know if you've had a chance to walk through it, and if you haven't, I'm going to have to smack you for it because it is. I've been around the world. I was actually in the Netherlands last year for the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Arnhem, and I got to tour museums and cemeteries all over the Netherlands and Eastern Europe. And here, for educational purposes, nothing in the world touches what's in New Orleans, and it's grown, and I'm incredibly proud to be associated with it. I hope the week of the Super Bowl that it got massive audiences because it certainly deserved to. And it's a bucket list item, honestly. I would tell you, for anybody that has history as an interest, it's a bucket list item.
No doubt. And you won't have to smack me because I have been to the World War II Museum a couple of times.
Right.
I have.
Yeah,
But you can smack me for this. My grandfather, who I knew until I was 12, he passed away when I was 12, but he served, was in the Pacific, was actually on a B-52 and was shot by one of the Japanese planes in the arm. And I saw the scar many times, but I never walked through it with him, which is a huge regret of mine. For those that haven't been, that are down here in South Louisiana, it's an easy drive for us. What are a couple of the aspects that you most appreciate?
The most powerful one for me is God bless technology. You know, when I was there, I had the honor and privilege of meeting and talking for an extended period of time with a 100-year-old World War II veteran who they were taking a living history from. And they have done that over the last 20 years. They've gone out and reached out, along with Tim Gray and the World War II Foundation. They've gone out and tried to memorialize these men and women with interviews, live interviews. And one of the interactive event exhibits there is that they sat down with a Congressional Medal of Honor winner and two other, a young lady who served. And because I don't think a lot of people understand the depth and the breadth with which women served in the Second World War because of all the fighting age males that had left. The production technology and all the things, the marvels that happened, a lot of that was because of the women of that era. But they interacted with these people to the extent it was a lengthy 4, 5, 6 hour interview, and they asked them hundreds of questions. So you can literally sit down, press a button, almost like your iPhone, and ask a question of these people who have since passed, and they will answer it. And it's just to hear them talk. Again, 17, 18, 19-year-old at most. It's just breathtaking to hear. That's remarkable. I have not seen that, and it kind of gives me chills just to think about the technology that we can do there. We're chatting with Curt Schilling, who's got a great relationship with the World War II Museum down in New Orleans. Had an opportunity to talk with a lot of folks on Media Row after they chatted with you. Did you give any thought of what you might have been interested in doing military service if you weren't a baseball player? That was something that I hadn't heard. Given what I did for a living, I tried to be best of the best of the best in the world. I would have tried to be a SEAL or a Delta or somebody like that. That athletic mentality, in my mind, especially when you look at the Four Nations Canadian USA game with 3 fights in 9 seconds. It's all about being at the tip of the spear, right? making a difference on the front end of things. And that's probably what I would have tried to do. I was too tall to be a pilot.
I see. And look, we had Paul Skeens down here as a pitcher. Obviously, he was at LSU, and I asked him, like, because he was at Air Force, and this was before he was really Paul Skeens, and I was like,
right.
You're like 6'7". I don't know if you were going to be fitting in a plane. He's like, yeah, I wasn't going to fly anything, but I was just going to help any way that I could.
Right. My dad was stationed at Luke Air Force Base in Arizona when I was like 11, and I went in and asked them about, what are the chances I could be a pilot? And they said, well, first of all, you can't hear a bomb go off in the next room, so you're almost deaf. So no, but also you're too big. And I was like devastated. So I was like, all right, I'm jumping from airplanes.
You mentioned being at the tip of the spear, and you certainly were in the 2001 World Series when you and Randy Johnson were co-MVPs. I'm curious from just an emotional perspective, pitching and being involved in that World Series in Yankee Stadium after 9/11. What was that like?
Well, you can imagine, based on what I've already said, what my country means to me, what the history of my country means to me. Having gone to Ground Zero on the off day, having been able to address the first responders on site, people in Boston get offended, and I'm assuming it's okay that they do. When they say, oh, what was special? What was more special, 2001, 2004? And I said they were the same. And they're like, no, there's no way. There's no way, 2004. But 2001, you got to remember something. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. So I was pitching in front of my high school friends and coaches and my best friends growing up. There were about 19 taglines to that first start, right? Game 7, 9/11 is a month earlier. I'm on the mound against Roger Clemens. Game 7, a guy who literally 10 years to the day earlier had took me aside in the weight room in Houston in the Astrodome and redirected my entire career. So there was a billion. And I remember I was telling this story when I was on Radio Row. I remember it was the first time, probably the only time in my career, where I stepped off the rubber and looked around. I was like, I stepped off the rubber because you remember the B-2 flyover and all the things that go with that, and the argument about having the roof closed and all this other stuff. And I stepped off the mountain, looked around, and I was like, holy F. There's like millions and millions of people watching this right now. How cool is that? And I remember throwing the first pitch. I told myself before the first pitch, I had told myself the night before, I'm going to have to close my eyes when I throw the first pitch because of the camera flashes. I don't want to get blinded and get a line drive from Jeter back in the snaz. So I did that. But it was, I can't describe it. And I screwed it up in the 7th, but I remember walking off the mound after the 6th inning. I had only faced 18 hitters. So I had faced the minimum through 6. And you got to remember, that lineup was ridiculous. They were going for 4 in a row, that Jeter and O'Neill and Martinez and Williams. And I had pretty much shut them down twice. And I think everybody's wondering, gosh, how's he going to be on the third time? And I was like, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm ready to go. And it was just a heavyweight slugfest from a pitching perspective for 6 or 7 or 8 innings, and it ended. And I argue, if you're not a New York fan, that World Series went exactly how it should have gone. The 3 games in New York were some of the most memorable World Series games ever. That city got energized and vibrant, and all that went with that. And then the good guys won at the end.
Can I ask what 9/11 was like a month later, the Ground Zero?
So, I am someone who I don't have a problem talking to people in any setting because, for better or worse, I am who I am. I know at my core I'm a good person. I believe in good things. I try to do the right thing. Doesn't mean I always do. I try to say the right thing, and it doesn't mean I always do. But I always try and do the right thing. And I was given an opportunity with all the team members there to be the person to talk to these people. And I can remember I was talking to hundreds of people, and I don't know if I can convey it, but there was a map on the wall of the Ground Zero site by square foot, and it was probably 30 to 40 feet wide and 20 feet high. And in it were yellow pins for civilians, red pins for firefighters, and blue pins for police officers whose bodies they'd recovered. And at the time I was there, they had just found a fireman's remains, and they were bringing them out. And every time they did it with the ceremony. And so I recognized, I think, the power of what I was about to do, and I tried as hard as I could not to screw it up, to convey our love and appreciation for these people. And like always, to convey our love and appreciation for the people in New York, because you can say what you want about New York, but in times of crisis, there's no city in the world I think you'd want to pick on like New York. And they were everything we'd hoped they would be and more. And it was just it's an experience I'll never forget.
Curt Schilling is our guest for a couple more minutes. We certainly do appreciate your time. You mentioned the 2004 Red Sox World Series where y'all came back from 3 down against the Yankees in the ALCS. At what point over the course of that 5 days did you feel like the Yankees might be in trouble?
Honest to God, after we lost 19-6 in Game 4, we were standing in the locker room, and in Boston's locker room, we have a closed-circuit feed to the video room, the interview room. And I was standing there, and Terry sat down. And again, we just lost 19-6. We'd gotten pummeled. We're down 3-0. No one's ever done it before.
Yeah.
And they asked Terry, somebody in the Boston media said, what are you going to do? And he said, what do you mean? We're going to show up tomorrow. We're going to play our asses off. And in a split second, it clicked to me that was it. We didn't have to win 4 or 3 in a row or 2 in a row or win tomorrow's game. We needed to focus on the inning and inning by inning. And when we had a team meeting, I said something to the effect to the team, we don't have to win the game tomorrow. We have to win the top half of the first. If you're as a pitcher, win every at bat. And as a hitter, if you make an out, win the at bat, make it a 10, whatever. And for 8 days, and then there's the always undermentioned and significantly impacting fight in the wives' room, which happened after that game. And I tell the story. So my wife is kind of like, she likes to do things for the wives. And in 2001, she put these purple scarves together, bedazzled them, and the wives wore them as like a unity thing. She did the same thing in 2004. And she didn't get along with one of the other, it wasn't a wife, it was a girlfriend at the time. And Michelle Damon came into the wives' lounge and threw her scarf at my wife and said, a lot of good these effing things did. My wife stood up and took the scarf and threw it back at her, and she said, maybe if you wore it, your husband wouldn't be 0 for 20. And it was on. And there was a legitimate hockey fight with everybody third man in, breaking it up, and we won 8 straight after that. And you can imagine, I come out after the game, right? I come out after the game, get in the car with my wife, and I'm like, oh, my God, we just lost 19-6, blah, blah. She's like, you're not going to believe what happened. And I'm like, wait, what? And so the next day, Johnny and I walked in the locker room. We looked at each other and just started laughing our butts off. We're like, oh, my God, really? But there was a lot of that little stuff going on behind the scenes.
Well, it was...
And, yeah.
It was history to watch. There's no question about that, Curt. I could do this all afternoon. I appreciate a little bit of your time.
Let me just say, when I retired, people were like, start an animal rescue. It'll be fun, and you'll be able to rescue. I just spent 2 hours chasing a stray goat through. I toured a Civil War battlefield I didn't know existed by going through the barbed wire. And I'm bleeding profusely, and I don't even know what to say. But we caught the goat, and the goat is back safe. So
I'm glad to hear that as well. Thanks for a little bit of your time. Thanks for all the work you've done with the World Museum down here in our state, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Take care.
Sure will.
Take care, Hunt. All right,
he is Curt Schilling, Major League Baseball legend. Animal rescue and goat saver, I guess, is as well. I got to talk baseball with him all day. I didn't even get a chance to ask him about the current state of baseball, and I didn't get a chance to ask him about the bloody sock. I could have done a lot of that, but I thought that there were we got to respect his time, and we've also got a hard break to get out to the end of the show. So that was great stuff. Appreciate Curt for making some time for us here a couple of weeks after we couldn't make it work there on Media Row for the Super Bowl. So we'll take a time out, come back, and close things up. Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
ESPN, Baton Rouge, and Citizens Bank and Trust want to help cover your car payments. It's a $5,000 grand prize with a bonus chance to win free car washes from Benny's Car Wash for 6 months. We're also letting you earn extra entries by subscribing to our LouisianaSports.net daily newsletter. To sign up, visit 1045ESPN.com. And 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge is your home for the New Orleans Pelicans. Tune in as the Pels hit the road, face the Mavericks on Friday at 7:30, and then they'll return home and host Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs Sunday at 6 and Tuesday at 7. We have the Pels on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge, and that coverage is brought to you locally by Industry Makes.
All right, wrapping things up here on a Tuesday. Big announcement. Excited about this. Y'all know that I hosted sports trivia at Pluckers for the better part of a decade. And obviously Pluckers decided to close their doors a couple of months ago. We're back in action tonight. Sports trivia. Pizza by Rones on Perkins, 8:30. LSU Hoops will be on. You can eat some pizza, some wings, drink some cold beers, win some gift cards. So I'm really pumped about this. I tweeted out a couple days ago. Forgot to say it on the show yesterday. But we'll be at Pizza by Rones on Perkins tonight for some sports trivia. If you'd like to come on out, bring a team, come by yourself. It'll be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it tonight. Pizza by Rones on Perkins. All right, let's play some Take It or Leave It.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it.
All right, first one here. Fellow 104.5 ESPN producer Matt Musso said LSU's uniform combo today, purple jerseys with pinstripe pants, is the most underrated of the Tigers uniform combinations. Uniforms are, take it or leave it.
I will leave that because, in my opinion, the most underrated are the grays, which everyone doesn't like, and I love them. But these are very, very, very good. I like them a lot. If they're going to wear the purple jerseys, I think they should wear the pinstripe pants. I think that looks great. The Cubs rock a version of this with their alternates sometimes. So, yeah, I'm all in on the purples with the pins, and LSU's playing okay in them early on. They're winning 3-0 against Southern in the bottom of the third inning.
All right, next one here. The Cubs, Hunt, they made another signing.
Yeah, another old guy.
40-year-old corner infielder
Sweet.
Justin Turner. Take it or leave it.
Leave it.
Just leave it alone.
He had a good finish to the year last year. He is 40. Like, I just let Matt Shaw play third base some, please, and don't block him with a 40-year-old who can't really run anymore. Turner still walks a good bit, doesn't strike out very much. But I'm not over the moon at the signing. It's cheap. There's no downside. It's 1 year, $6 million. But I just want the young kid to play. So that's where I am on that one.
All right, next the one here. In a interesting trend we are seeing with some college coaches, specifically in football, moving on to different jobs. David Shaw, who's been the head coach at Stanford for over 10 years, is leaving that job to become the passing game coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Take it or leave it.
Are we sure Shaw was the coach at Stanford last year?
Oh, maybe not. Maybe he's been gone for a few years.
Yeah, they've
now.
moved on from him. But either way, there is a trend of coaches leaving head coaching positions to go be coordinators in the college or the pro ranks because they don't want to deal with the drama with the transfer portal and NIL. And so I get that. And I don't know how much he had to deal with that at the end there at Stanford, but he's a very respected football coach. And I mean, the Lions got to overhaul basically their entire staff because when you lose your two coordinators, which they did, those guys are oftentimes going to take support system roles like Kellen Moore is taking from Philly to New Orleans, and you're going to need to really restock the shelves. And I think David Shaw is a good fit there for Dan Candle.
All right, last one here. Kyrie Irving has said that he wants to play for Team Australia at the 2028 LA Olympics. He has not made the Team USA roster in their last two Olympics, and he says that he's in the process of doing that. Kyrie Irving with the Aussies. Take it or leave it.
Leave it. That's garbage. You're not from Australia. You don't play for Australia.
He was born in Melbourne.
Don't care. Not in Australia.
Okay.
I didn't know he was born in Australia.
He was.
How long did he live there?
I don't think he was there very long, but I mean, I don't know. I can try to find it real quick, but I would guess that his dad was probably in the military.
Yeah.
And that's probably why, but
leave it. Play for America, Kyrie. That's it.
He was born and then he grew up in New Jersey. Yep. Not didn't grow up there.
Nope. Next.
That's it.
All right. All right, LSU leads 3-0 over Southern. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. LSU South Carolina tonight. LSU will travel to Nichols tomorrow in baseball. We'll talk about that as well. You can read about all of it at louisianasports.net. If you missed any of the show, catch it on demand wherever you find your podcast. Just search Hunt Palmer Show. That's about to drive you home. And after further review, we'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Hope to see you at Sports Trivia tonight. If not, we'll be next time on Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.